Hello, friends. Today I want to talk about boundaries and specifically the fact that we teach others how to treat us. And I mean everyone, people that we work with, our family, the children we're raising, our neighbors. We teach people that we interact with how to treat us. And I think sometimes when we talk about this, we sort of leave out that practical application. We don't really talk about what it looks like in practice, and specifically around like our time and our just any boundaries with our own person. I think the practical application is super helpful. Otherwise, we have that mindset of like, well, someone mistreated us and it was our fault, but we don't really know how to change it, how to go forward and learn a lesson on maybe how to shield and protect ourselves a little bit better. I wanted to talk about time a lot because I feel that we have limited time every day. We don't all spend our 24 hours the same way. And I think a lot of happiness and discontent comes from how we spend our time. I think when we spend our time the way we want to spend it, it brings us a lot more happiness and peace. And when we don't spend it the way we want it and we feel a lack of control, it sort of contributes to a feeling of unhappiness. So the first thing I want to talk about is setting boundaries around your time. This one is important because there are always going to be people asking something of us. People are always going to be saying, how available are we? Sometimes it's for social calls. Sometimes it's because people need help with things. They want to employ our services. There's all sorts of reasons. But here is where I have kind of fallen short in the past. I have maybe had a friend or someone say, hey, I need help with something, a home project, help with moving, whatever it is. And they may say, okay, this Saturday I need help. What I have not been great about doing is setting a framework and boundary around that time. So it's easy to just say, yeah, I'm available. 12 o'clock, sure, I'll be there. But a better way to handle this, especially when I have my own life and obligations I need to get to, is to say, yes, I can make it at 12, but I do need to stop at 2. So whatever we can get done in those 2 hours, I hope that's sufficient because that's the time I have. When we don't put any sort of boundaries around our time, people are going to take advantage, and not even because they're bad people, but because we haven't communicated anything otherwise. I feel that my attitude has often been, hey, I want to help people. If I were in this position, I would want other people to do the same for me. But I haven't always anticipated that when I'm giving more than I can really afford to give, I end up with somewhat of a negative attitude. And it took me a really long time to recognize that the attitude I had could be avoided just by setting boundaries around my time. So saying I'm free from this time to this time, I'm only available on this specific day, or even saying, hey, Sundays, that's kind of my day of rest. It's the day before work, so I really don't like doing anything after 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. Setting those boundaries and being quite clear, not only is it helpful for other people, but you might also be setting an example for other people. Some people might actually stop and think, wow, I love that you do that for your Sundays, a day of rest. Awesome. I should do something similar to that, and no problem. Let's see if we can do something on Friday or Saturday instead. Another way where we can set boundaries around our time is taking our lunch breaks and using our vacation time. I know that some people don't take their lunch break because they have so much work to do and they're just like, this is my only time when I don't have meetings, so I'm just going to work through my lunch. Or, maybe there's just so much to get done that I can't afford it. But the thing is, you can't afford not to. And what I have been purposefully trying to do is actually stepping away from my desk, getting some fresh air, making sure that the time is very separate, that I am off doing something else, whether it is just like sitting in my car and listening to a podcast or going for a walk or catching up with a friend. I am very clearly setting a boundary around my space and time that this 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes is not for me to work. It's for me to rest or take a break from this computer and from sitting at this desk. And the same thing for vacation. And I think in the past, I didn't take my vacation time because I was always trying to save it for a big vacation, a trip somewhere. And I would always think, well, I need to save this extra week or extra 2 weeks. But sometimes I don't take a trip for 4, 5, or 6 months. And what I'm learning is that I could definitely benefit from a day or two. So I'm trying to get a lot better with just taking a day or two on a random weekday to be at the beach, or to take a midday workout class, or just have a day where I don't have to set my alarm. And it feels amazing. And what I think it does is it teaches people that you don't just come with the furniture, that you're going to need some time off just like everyone else. You are a person and not a machine, and you need your rest. Those days are yours to use. That's how I remind myself. And so it is my responsibility to use them. Another way we can communicate boundaries around our time is to have a bedtime. It sets examples for the people around you, whether it's your children or even if you're talking to a friend super late, to be able to, say, hey, I can talk for a little bit longer, but I do need to get off the phone at X time because I need to start getting ready for bed. Everyone benefits from a bedtime. It doesn't have to be an early bedtime, although mine is, and that works for me because I also wake up really early. Communicating that you no longer have time available because you need to rest is not mean. You don't have to worry about who you're inconveniencing, because the consequences of not getting sufficient rest and the way that it can carry over for days on end because you started the week with not enough rest, it's wild. And I'm just constantly reminding myself that I cannot afford that. So speaking up about a bedtime and saying, no, I can't go to that movie that starts at this time because that's my bedtime and it's a weekday and I have work and I have to get up early. Or it could be a weekend, but you just don't feel great staying up late. Giving your body and mind a routine and a time that you know that you can completely relax because you're going to be asleep soon, it does great things. Another way that we can exercise better boundaries and teach people how to treat us is to communicate our non-negotiables. I think that this is something that can sometimes rub people the wrong way. Now, one, I think sometimes people can communicate their non-negotiables in a really harsh way where it feels like there's maybe no room for grace. And that's never what I want to do. For instance, I really don't like when people are super late and don't communicate that. I don't mind if they're late, but if you don't communicate it, that bothers me. But I don't want to put it out there as if someone does it, they're 5 minutes late, they don't communicate it, that suddenly I'm going to block them. No, but it's definitely important to be able to say, hey, it's really important to me that if you are running late, that you communicate that to me. That makes things a lot easier for me. I'm not wondering where you are, and I can even leave later if need be. Something like that, but it's still me communicating something that's very important to me. Now, the other type of people it scares away is people who are sort of non-committal. They don't really like accountability, and they also don't really know what they want in their own life. So someone who is very, very clear on what they want makes them uncomfortable, a little bit intimidated. And for that type, I am not apologetic at all. If I know what I want for my own life, I'm not afraid to communicate that. And I'm also open to other people communicating to me what they need for their lives. In fact, I'm grateful for it because typically someone communicating their needs is someone that is really trying to stick around. That's usually how I take it. Now, this one kind of also touches on time, but really it's just everything in life. When it comes to teaching others how to treat us, you need to say no and mean it. This is not about being harsh, mean, or aggressive, but if there is something that someone is asking of you, and it is not a hard set obligation of yours, you can just say no. In fact, I think people would appreciate it and respect you more if you say no, instead of saying yes and then going back on your word or being very wishy-washy or iffy. Just simply say no. And there are a lot of instances where your explanation is not really required. Now, I will say when it comes to maybe a friend asks you to go to lunch or go to dinner or go for a hike and you're not available, It's often nice to give a clear no and say, I'm not available on that day, but I would like to get together with you. So what about this other day? What bothers me is when I ask someone, hey, would you like to hang out? And they start listing all the things they have to do, and that's why they're not sure. That doesn't help me. Just let me know yes or no. And if that doesn't work, communicate another day. I think in general, you'll find maybe there may be a few people that are off-put by clear communication, but overall, it's much more effective and helpful for everyone if your yes is a yes and your no is a no. And so kind of connected with that, just like you're clear on your yeses and you're clear on your nos, you can also be clear on what you can offer. If there are things that you're not able to do, or similar to what I mentioned before about having kind of limited time available, be very clear on what you can do. I can't come and help on Saturday with your move, but I can help with you unpacking on Monday, for instance. I don't know why I keep using the moving example. I guess because it's one of those things that is sometimes awkward to ask for help on. A lot of us may need help and kind of understand that maybe it's not the most fun thing to be asked. But I think that's why it's really good to have that clear communication so that you know who you can depend on. I think the last one that I would like to mention, and I think it's probably the most important, is to spend time with people who support your goals and your values. So how I mentioned that I don't really like when people are late and don't communicate that. There are some people, no matter how many times you tell them, they're just not going to be good at that. The thing that I can't stand the most is when a friend is running late and they will text when they're already late. So if they're supposed to be there at 11, they text at 11:05 and say, hey, I'm on my way. I'll be there in 10 minutes. One, you already knew you were going to be late, and two, you're lying because you're 30 minutes away. And the funny thing is, we always find out when they're lying because then they show up 30 minutes later. But I think that type of person suffers from not being able to get out of maybe like a people pleaser mindset. So they feel like, oh, telling the person that I'm 5 minutes away is going to make them less angry than my real 30 minutes away. But it's one of those things where the person is going to be waiting and they're going to find out. And so clear communication to maybe call the person and say, hey, I haven't left yet. I wanted to call you and see if we could maybe start a little later. People tend to respect that more. I know I do. But like I said, some people, no matter how many times you ask them, they're not going to. And so instead of frustrating ourselves or saying, well, with this friend, you got to lie and you got to say the event is 30 minutes earlier than it is and all the, I just don't have time for that. I would rather spend time with people who have a similar form of communication, understand my communication style and needs, and make it clear what their communication style is and their needs are. Also with people who have, are supportive of our goals and supportive of our values, I find myself less defensive around them. It's not that the interactions are perfect, but they are someone that I know that I am safe with. I know that I can share if, let's say I have like a wellness goal of some sort and it requires me to not eat out for the next month. There are some friends that I could communicate that to, and they will say, oh, cool. Well, no problem. We can meet at a hike. We can meet and do a pottery class. Like they will find something else because that quality time in that friendship is what's most important to them. Whereas someone else might see that particular goal of mine as an inconvenience to them and simply just choose to not reach out to me or to complain. Of course, I'm using very simplistic examples, but there are times in our lives where the goals we have can be a little longer than that. Maybe because we're going back to school or, maybe saving for a house. There's different things where we have to make changes and sacrifices. And I believe we should surround ourselves with people that will continuously respect those values and also boost us and help us to achieve the goals that we have. I just can't live my life in a way where I'm feeling like I'm in defense mode all the time with people that are supposed to be close to me. It's not so much that I'm happy or quick to cut people off, but I'm constantly using discernment to see who is safe, who is it okay to be vulnerable with and share these deeper parts of me, and who is available and mature enough in this moment to come along for this part of the journey. When we pick the right people for the journey, those people, I promise you, they will respect your boundaries. They will be happy that you communicated those boundaries, and they will in turn give you that same respect to communicate what it is that they need from whatever the nature of the relationship is. So those are kind of my tips around teaching people how to treat you and what the practical application looks like. Definitely send me a message and let me know on Instagram or leave a review if you have any commentary on this episode or you have ideas about what you want to see in the next episode. Well, that's it for now. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for listening.